I found as a principle, just spending a little bit is like whatever minimum you can spend, whatever that number is great. If it's $50 a month just to get through the learning phase and that's all you can do, that's something. And then the more money you put at it, it's just like throwing gasoline on a fire. The more money you put on, you can throw at it, the more gasoline is getting thrown on the fire. I've found for me that like $300 a month, which is like $10 a day, is a great like starting sweet spot.
Well, welcome to the podcast today. My name is Jason Tonioli, and I have a special guest, Zach Sprowls, with me. And we were just sitting here chatting before we went live. And it's interesting when I start these, Zach. You're a successful piano player, and you're a full-time musician. And success again is if you think about successful musicians, that's a loaded question because success is different for everybody. But you started asking me several questions and said, well, I want to just pick your brain. And so rather than our normal, where I'm probably going to ask all the questions, I think what's going to be really interesting is you've got a really talented guy here, Zach, that is going to share some great words of wisdom, I'm sure. But I think maybe we'll just have this back and forth conversation, Zach, that we're going to just, it'll be like being in the room having coffee with somebody and just listening to what's working, what we're frustrated about. And I think it's going to be really interesting. So if you're up for that, I think this is going to be a good time.
Yeah, let's go for it.
So, Zach, I want to introduce you first of all. Give us your, 3 minute, origin story. How did you grew up as a guy that loved playing piano or you hated practicing piano? I mean, how did you end up getting where you're at today?
Um, well, I'm trying to think of where to begin. So, um, my parents started me on taking piano lessons at 6 years old.
Okay.
My parents were not musical, but they noticed some musical responsiveness in me. And my grandfather, my mom's dad, was very musical. And so they kind of had that category in their heads, even though they weren't musicians themselves. And when they saw me responding to music the way I did, they thought they should probably start me in piano lessons. So I did at 6, and I always loved it. I never hated my piano lessons, and I think I owe that to my first piano teacher, who um, was a really good piano teacher and who kind of sparked the imagination, rather than like, being bullheaded about getting us started on the right track with theory and technique and repertoire and stuff like that. She was more about making it fun and letting us do our own thing if we wanted to. And she was really good at that. So, I mean, within my first year or two, I was already performing in my church. She had me doing, I think it was Jesus Loves Me with her as a duet,
Very cool.
and taught me how to like arrange songs myself, even very simply. And then, I just uh, pursued piano all the way through high school. I played in my church as often as I could, um, played in bands as often as I could, and then went to school in college for music. And I went to a small private school, and I ended up getting a degree in church music.
Interesting.
Yeah, bachelor's. I guess it's sacred music. The major was called church music, but the degree was sacred music. So, yeah, and then I started working for churches. I did an internship down in the DC area that had me. So I would say up until this point, most of my experience with music had been my classical based piano lessons, and sacred music repertoire that I would use for competitions and playing in churches and stuff. And then my degree, obviously being in sacred music, I was doing a lot more of that kind of stuff, but then I was showing an aptitude for music composition, and I had a professor give me some private composition lessons. And then after college, I did an internship that was more on like the recording and songwriting side. So it was in a studio. And then from there, I started working for churches, doing like music director type work. And then back in 2020 is when I was able to go full-time self-employed music. And that's morphed over the years from being more like doing recording projects and freelance work that was kind of more arranging based, a little bit of composition, but more on the arranging side, and doing some freelance music director work and things like that, to now it's more on the composition side. And I'm composing for my own projects, side projects, composing for film, and then picking up for some freelance work here and there. So yeah, it's been kind of a mixture of different things over the years.
Well, and I'm curious. So a lot of people that are musicians, are always trying to go full time, and so you've been able to do that, which is awesome. If you don't mind sharing, I mean, as you were able to do that, where for your journey and your path, where is the monetization, or where is the money actually come in? Did it start out with these church jobs, it sounds like, and so the music director, and you're getting paid probably to do some of the church projects, but I mean, was there a point where with all the recording you're making money on the streaming side, on the sync side with,
Yeah, it so obviously it started out after college. I didn't make any money from my internship. Um, just a salary from churches. And started out part-time and then moved into full-time. While I was part-time, I was also teaching private lessons, so that's how I paid the bills.
okay.
Full-time for churches for a while, and then my shift from working for churches into full-time self-employed was kind of a sharp change. There wasn't a gradual transition of anything of any kind. So I drove school bus for a while in that transition, helped out a friend doing landscaping. Um, and then I just landed, it was freelance work for a while. I mean, I was recording stuff and putting it on Spotify and all the streaming platforms, but it takes so much time to get any number of streams that like actually equals a monetary number that's worth sneezing at. So, I'm doing that. I'm putting it up there, but I'm not seeing anything yet. So it was just a lot of freelance work. I would play tracks for people. I'd play piano tracks like on their recordings. This is 2020, so I'm doing it from a distance. I was helping out a church down in the Washington, D.C. area, so that was on a freelance basis. So that was some arranging work that was going down and leading services on occasion, or playing piano for a service or two, gigging around town, um, sitting in on piano for sessions. And then I landed the big thing was I landed a job with a guy in the UK who writes musicals, and he writes the dialogue and the lyrics and sketches out melodies, and then he would hire me to like flesh them out into actual arrangements. And so that was for like 3 years. That was my main bread and butter financially, was working for this guy in the UK. It was all done from a distance. And eventually the residuals from streaming, my streaming grew. I learned how to do ads and stuff with that. And that became pretty substantial and dependable every month. And so I was able to start saying no to some of the freelance work and just keep spending more time reinvesting into that more passive source of income and the more enjoyable stuff, because that's all stuff I wanted to do, the kind of music I wanted to make. And now I'm able to do like a lot of composition work, like for local film companies. It's like sometimes pays, sometimes doesn't. And I'm free to make that decision because I have these passive sources of income that are more regular.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so with a lot of the music you've done. I mean, you talk about streaming, I guess. What as you look back on that streaming journey, and I think you've had some success with some playlists and kind of some of that type of stuff. What if you were sitting down with a newer artist trying to say, oh, I want that wants to, get their music on Spotify and get, what advice would you have for them when it comes to the streaming platforms and things they should consider or do?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is um, you have to do something. You just putting your music on streaming platforms and hoping that it's going to pop is not a thing. It's not a thing. Yeah, I was gonna say it used to be a thing, but I don't even know if it used to be a thing. It's not a thing. So don't lie to yourself. Don't fool yourself. You have to do something. And organic social media posting is also becoming not really a thing for success. So the biggest thing I can say is you got to figure out how to do marketing, like ads is what I'm talking about. Um, and I can offer up some sources that I found helpful for learning how to do ads because it is kind of a learning curve. Um, but it is, if you do learn it, it is like a reliable way to build a streaming presence and a fan base on streaming platforms. And it takes a while and it takes a lot of money up front that there's no one-to-one connection between ad spend and revenue received. It's like you put a lot of money in up front, you see none of it come back to you, but then over time that starts changing, and eventually the amount you're putting in every month is exceeded by the revenue you're seeing every month. And so maybe over the course of 3 years, then you start becoming profitable from it. But then playlisting is, if you pay for playlist placements via like Submit Hub or Playlist Push or something like that, there's pros and cons to that. It can be effective at getting you a lot of streams, but it can also shoot you in the foot at not getting you engaged fans and also tricking the algorithm to think that your fans don't really like your music because you're not actually having real engagement in the metrics. So that's a mixed bag. You got to be careful with that. I'd say just keep that
I think
as like a
they've got some blocking that'll happen if they think you're a bot that you get shut down. I mean,
yeah.
there's a lot of new stuff I know that is a little bit scary for getting fake listens now that you want to watch out for.
Yeah. Now, one strategy so we talked a little bit before we went live about one size fits all strategies, and so at the risk of falling prey to giving a one size fits all strategy, I will say there's one technique that I found effective that I think would work for everybody, regardless of genre, and that is creating a playlist that is so if you notice big artists have a this is and then the artist name playlist that Spotify automatically generates. You can create your own using the same kind of graphic that says this is, in my case, it'd be this is Zach Sprowls, and you populate it with your tracks only. And then when you run your ads and your ad campaigns, you send people to the playlist rather than to the single or the album that you're promoting. And you end up shooting like multiple birds with one bullet when you do that. What I found is you end up getting people who stream the song, people who stream the rest of your songs, and people who follow your playlist who will then continue to stream all this stuff automatically without your needing to like continue to send people to it, all in one fell swoop. And it's like the most powerful thing that I've found. It's pretty incredible.
That's interesting. You know, and it's such a simple thing to do. Um, yeah, it's uh, yeah, and you're mostly saying this is for Spotify is probably what you're doing most of those ads for, right? Is that where you spent most of your time, or are you doing other?
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get the same metrics from like Apple Music, but I would have to think it would work the same way with Apple Music because you can create public playlists and send people to it.
Well, and Pandora doesn't really have well, they kind of do, but I don't think a lot of people benefit from the Pandora playlist the way Pandora is more of an open box. Anybody can listen and
Yeah.
but yeah, no, and I think that's actually how I ran across you and kind of you had some playlists that just popped when I was doing some searches and I thought, okay, this guy looks interesting. I'm gonna reach out. So
Yeah.
very, very cool. So, I mean, you talked about spending money. So for somebody that is, wanting to start spending money on doing that playlist strategy, I mean, are you talking, this is like a $3 to $5 a day spend? Is it a $50 a day, $100 a day, thousand? I mean, what kind of investment do you feel like is reasonable based on what you've found recently, with the Spotify advertising to get somebody to go to that playlist?
I think you have to spend so I was running conversion campaigns on Facebook, Instagram, and I think you have to spend um I think a minimum of $5 a day if I'm not mistaken. Um at least or maybe it's you want to get so many conversions within a certain amount of time so that Facebook moves out of its learning stage. So if you're familiar with conversion ads, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, you'll become familiar. Um, so you want to hit that learning phase pretty quickly. The more you run ads, the faster you get through those learning phases. So you might have to spend a certain minimum within a certain number of days. It might be like $50 in the first 2, 3 days, something like that, in order to get out of the learning phase. But then you can drop it back to whatever you want. I've I found as a matter like as a principle, just spending a little bit is like whatever minimum you can spend, whatever that number is great. If it's $50 a month just to get through the learning phase and that's all you can do, that's something. And then the more money you put at it, it's just like throwing gasoline on a fire. The more money you put on you can throw at it, the more gasoline is getting thrown on the fire. I've found for me that like $300 a month, which is like $10 a day, is a great like starting sweet spot. Um, it's a manageable amount per month. It's what a car payment might be. Um, but you'll get a lot of traction from that. And it's enough every day, $10 a day that you're going to be seeing a enough conversions every day that you can start like predicting things or analyzing things, knowing what's happening, like see actual changes in metrics on the face and the Spotify side of things. And then, more, if you could do $1,000 a month, then that's just going to magnify that.
One of the big mistakes, and I'm guilty of this. I still remember years ago when Facebook barely started doing their ads, and I was spending 1 cent per thousand views to show my ads on Facebook. So it's funny because I can go back even on my Facebook ads accounts and I can see those, and it just blows my mind to think, oh my gosh, it was 1 penny per thousand views when they first launched that. But uh, when you're first, and it's gotten so much easier to track conversions. You talked about conversion campaigns. I think when somebody's new at doing, Facebook ads or Google ads or any ad platform for that matter, you get something set up and you're like, okay, I'm going to spend $5 a day or $10 a day, whatever amount it is. But a lot of people will think that just because they're spending $5 a day or $100 a day, that that's working. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that don't go that next step to just look at whatever the metrics are and decide, did it actually work? Because, Mr. Zuckerberg at Facebook is more than happy to take your money. And, it's if you have incompetent people, giving you money that just want to keep giving you money month after month after month, you know, Facebook's happy to take that money. And I've even been guilty of it myself of, oh, it's just running. I haven't looked at that campaign in a year and a half and it used to be working. But um, I tell people, gosh, you need to make sure that unless you just want to donate money to Mr. Zuckerberg, you need to be looking at, did the metric work? Is it actually doing the thing you're wanting to? And I like that you talked about that, don't think it's just going to magically start making money on playlists. Because a lot of times, if I spend $5, I need to make $5.01 back if I'm going to do that. But that's
Mhm.
probably not going to be the case with playlists. On the flip side, however, when it comes to, I sell a lot of books and I've done a ton of e-commerce stuff over the years in this, like the last 5 years. And this spring, actually, it was this spring for the music side. And I don't know whether this is an award I should get or not, or stupidity award, but spent for my music. We spent over, I passed the $1 million paid to Facebook for advertising.
Did they give you one of those like plaques like YouTube does? And
It's like I've given you guys so much money, and if you ever are, there's reasons why you would go into that type of spend. There were days we were spending $2,000-3,000 per day, and but the only reason that my team and I could do that is we knew to the penny how much we sold. So I knew the conversion. I knew that if I spent X number of dollars, let's say $10 with Facebook, I knew that I could get $15 out. And it's kind of one of those where I just ask people like, okay, if I gave you a dollar, or if you give me a dollar and then I gave you $2 back, would you trade that again and again and again? Oh yeah. Even if it's you give me a dollar and I give you a dollar five back, well, let's play that game again. I'll just, all day long. And essentially, if you can set up your offer or your, whatever your advertisement is, if you can find a thing that somebody is interested enough to give you money for, and you can set it up the right way, there's a lot, Facebook can show ads to the right people. Google can show ads to the right people. And there's all kinds of levers that you can move and change. And I'm sure you found that quite a bit with with your playlist. I've really done very, very little advertising for a playlist because one, I didn't feel like I could get my money back fast enough on that, but I probably should have invested some. I'd probably make a whole lot more money today with my streaming had I invested more money into that. But again, the key thing is if you hire somebody to help you do it, or if you're doing it yourself, I honestly, even today, I still have a spreadsheet and it says, okay, here's how much we spent on Facebook ads for the day. Here's how many books we sold. Here's how much those books cost me. Here's how much the postage is to send these. Here's how much it cost me to pay my people to package the books and send the envelope. Here's the cost. We've got an average cost. Here's the label that's 9 cents. Here's all of these costs that are involved in getting to that point where I can send somebody a book. And I have a number at the end of the day that says, okay, we made 15 or 20, or even if it's just one sell. If I paid $10 to Facebook and it cost me another $10 to print and package and ship, well, I'm $20 into that. But if the person paid me $18, I'm losing $2 a day. That's fun for a few days,
Yeah.
and it feels really good when you sell something, but to have a business, the reality is you've got to be willing to look at the situation and say, okay, well, what levers can I move? Do I need a better target? Do I need to target better people? Is that something I can do better? Can I, instead of getting $18 to sell a book, on average, can I get people to give me $30? So maybe you add on an extra thing with their order, and not everybody takes it, but some of the time they do, some of the time they don't. And so your average order value or average cart value, they call it ACV, goes up enough that, all right, on average, I get $30 when I make, 10 sales or 100 sales or whatever you're, statistically want to count as valid. So I can now afford, if my average cart value is 30, realistically, I could pay $30 to Facebook and I could break even. And then from a business standpoint, and this is what I think most musicians probably don't think this way, but if I can pay $30 to Facebook to give me a lead, or somebody who likes my music, and the average amount that I sell a book for is $30, I essentially got a free fan, or potentially got a free fan. And so it technically didn't cost me anything. And then now the question is, as a business owner, or musician, or whatever whatever the business is, can I take that fan or new customer and on average get 50% of them to like me enough that they might go listen to some of my songs? Well, now I just got a free listener on my playlists. Or can I come out with a new song or a new book, or just give them value so that they're liking me? You don't want them to feel like you're selling to them all the time, right? That's the problem that I think most people have. It's like, oh, join my Patreon or buy this music from me. Nobody wants to get sold to. Get real. There's a reason we make fun of car salesmen. It's the greasy car sales guy. So the key thing as a musician that I've tried to do is, what can I do to add value to the relationship, and not be asking you for money very often. But when I do come out with a new book, or I come out with a new song, that I've got a line of people now that hopefully I acquired for free, or maybe I even make money on it. But if you could at least get fans for free, some of those fans are going to get excited about your stuff if you share the journey of making the music. And some of them are going to be willing to be like, yeah, I'll give you $4 for that song. I want to play that song on the piano. That's cool. Or you share the music video and then they want to go listen to it online, or you monetize the YouTube channel. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to monetize, but I think musicians in general have had this idea that they can't have this anything more than an email list. And then even when they have the email list, they don't know what to do with it. They
Hmm.
they don't value the relationship they've built with somebody that's, shown interest in their music.
Yeah. Yeah. I I think music school ought to have quite a few courses on business. That's one thing that I think is missing, because what nobody thinks about is that like our society is a market society, a capitalistic society. Everything, no matter what it is existing. It's like it's everything is fish in the water of capitalism and of a free market. And so you have to, nothing exists apart from really in our society apart from somehow being related to like money. Money was needed to create it. Money was needed to furnish everything around it. And you didn't even go to school apart from somebody paying your tuition, and your professors are all paid salaries. And so your art might not require money to make it. Maybe you got to buy supplies and gear, and your parents probably spent a lot of money on your lessons and things like that. But the craft is like the creativity involved in making your art doesn't require money, but it does require money to like get it out there, and it requires a business sense, and it has to exist in this water world of of a market. And so, musicians don't really realize that like they have to have the ability to think that way, and they have to have some skill sets there, and they have to be willing to play that game um if they want to get their music heard by more than just them and their mom and their significant other. And uh oh, what else was I gonna say? I just lost it.
Let me just chime in there. So I think you and I earlier were talking about this one-to-one experience that you have with people. And I think musicians, at some level, you want to have the big, you want to reach, the thousands or millions of people with your music. But in reality, at least most musicians I know, if you were you're in the same room with somebody and you're playing the piano for them, and I mean, you would engage one-to-one with that individual. You would share something, you'd share a story about that song, or shoot, there's times I'll bring people and we'll sit down at the piano bench together and I'll show them something and let them try something. And so if you think about your fans or somebody that likes your music and approach it of like, okay, if I only had one person that would ever like my music, that's not my mom or my significant other, what would, and I needed that in order to be successful, I need that person to fall in love with my music. So step back, as you're put your business hat on and say, okay, I've only got one potential client. What is it that I would do to blow that person's mind of, and have them completely fall in love with me? I mean, you can think of it like when you're young and you're dating and you're finding that special person that you're like, oh, that's my special someone. I mean, are you going to take them on a date and then like ignore them for like 2 months and think they're going to have any interest in you? It's the same with your
Yeah.
fan. Okay, this person just bought a song from you or subscribed to your channel or sent you an email and said how much they love your music. Well, am I going to, would you ignore them? Like that,
Yeah.
you're never going to get a second date if you ignore them for a month. Probably not even for a week. If the girl's got any sense in her, like, oh, he doesn't have any, So I try to approach when I talk with musicians and just say, when they ask, oh, what would you do? What should I do? Treat that one person that shows interest in your music and set up a system so that maybe once they engage with you, do you have a text message that goes out to them? Do you have an email that goes out to them that says, hey, it was so awesome. I'm so glad you found this music. A lot of, the song that I think people like has been one of the most popular ones. I just want to share it with you. Here it is. And it could be a YouTube video. It could be, maybe you want to send them sheet music for free. So think, is it a thing? Would you send them a thank you card? Would you, do a personal video? If you only had that one person, would you record like a personal video just with that person and their name, just to tell them you love them type of thing? Here's, there's so many things we can do with technology today that as musicians, I think we overcomplicate and think, oh, I need some fancy software to do all this. Okay, if you only had one, can you not send an email once a day to somebody, or can you just send a thoughtful text to somebody? And those little things, if you can come up with a system or a roadmap that is going to make that, fan fall in love with your music, that's a game changer. They're going to feel like they have a one-on-one relationship with you. And, the tricky part is okay, you get one fan, now you got 10, now you got 20, 50, 100. So now how can you do that? And the beauty of it is there's a lot of tools, CRM tools. I think I've used 12 or 13 different CRM softwares over my career. I used to do consulting for banks on those softwares, but there's some tools now software wise that are dream systems for musicians. Like it's
Hmm.
so easy to set some automations up so that if somebody interacts with you or messages you on Facebook or buys something for you, you could have a whole series. I call it an onboarding campaign that I do. And so it essentially allows me to introduce myself, tell my story, sends them some free stuff. I find out if they play piano or if they're just a listener and they don't play piano. And depending on whether or not you play piano or not, you go down two different paths. So, hey, here, you don't play piano. Here's a playlist on YouTube that we created. It's, hope you like it. If they're a piano player, hey, here's a free song. Just go download it. Here's a coupon code just for you to go get this free song and download it. I'm not making any money on that, but guess what happens? I add value.
You get a long term fan.
And I'm not, eventually some of those people are gonna turn into, give me money back, which is awesome. But at very least, I'm able to hopefully I made somebody's day and I put a smile on their face. If that's the only payment I get, I'm cool with that, maybe they can't afford to spend any money on music. I don't care. I'm glad I could share my talent, and my music with you, and that's amazing. But there's going to be a percentage of people that want to engage and do more with your music, and for those people, you want to have a system in place to monetize it. And so I mean, and my systems aren't perfect. I mean, I'm the first one to criticize and be like, oh, I need to improve this. And there's so many things that we can always be doing better. But just like you said at the first, if you don't start writing music or you don't start putting some automation or system in place, you'll never do it. And and a lot of people just flat out don't know how to do it either. They're overwhelmed with technology. Most creative people do not think analytically, and like the whole idea of like, oh, I got to build an email secret. I mean, they can barely send an email, let alone create an automation to have it go out, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't blame musicians for not being wired that way. I mean, the number of, because being an artist is such a right brain thing, and all this analytical stuff is such a left brain thing. Even if there's an artist, and there are some out there, I think you and I are kind of this way, where you can kind of bounce between the two sides of the brain. It's taxing and it's not fun, and it's and all that. But I've actually, so this year, so here, this would be a little encouragement to somebody who's like either overwhelmed with it or not wired that way, or doesn't have time. Think about hiring somebody. And that sounds crazy, and you're thinking, oh, I'm not even profitable. I'm only spending money on my career now, not making anything. How could I afford to hire somebody? But even just 2 hours, so I hired somebody this year for 2 hours a week, and I'm giving him $20 an hour, a living wage, because that's just, I'm an idealistic person. I want to give them a living wage. Um, that's $160 a month. That's really not that much. Um, and the trade-off has been an incredible amount of peace of mind because the person I hired is really talented at like administrative stuff, all the things that I'm really not talented at. Um, so they can do it much more efficiently than I can and enjoy it more. And just the peace of mind of having like somebody who's on my team, who's shouldering these responsibilities with me, who I can just send an email to and they'll take care of it. Who's like fielding emails that I don't want to be receiving. Little things like that. It's like the return on that is so much greater than, the sum is so much greater than the parts. So they're putting in 2 hours a week worth of work that might have taken me 4 hours a week to do. But those 4 hours freed up for me to do things that I'm good at. Nets like 8 hours worth of productivity that I didn't have before because I was spending this time doing things that drained me and I wasn't good at. So it is worth thinking about finding somebody, even for just that a bit amount, to help you with some of that stuff. It's worth thinking about and trying.
Totally agree. And I mean, I've got several team members here in the States that I'm running multiple businesses now, and I have multiple people here for pretty much every business that are here in the States, and recognizing, I think it's key to recognize what you're good at, and then there's stuff that you're not great at, and recognize that instead of trying to do it all on your own. For some reason, I think entrepreneurs, um, we love to feel like we have to do everything. Everything from, in the music especially. I mean, I'm writing the music, trying to build a website, trying to figure out the accounting, trying to figure out plugins and why that's not working, trying to do customer support, and respond to emails, trying to do the marketing, to figure out how am I going to sell this stuff, doing do the ads for Facebook, and then, trying to sell whatever project I want to do next. There's so many hats, and that's why most people, I think, as entrepreneurs, they burn out, is they try to do everything. And it's important to learn how to do a lot of that stuff. And I feel like it's absolutely important to get to be competent and know enough about it that you could do it. But then when you really kind of graduate to that next level, is being like, all right, like you said, I'm going to take 4 hours to do that thing, and this person does it in 2 hours and they're happy and they like it. Oh my gosh, like that changed my life. And I think one of the things that was really interesting a couple of years ago, I was introduced to a site called onlinejobs.ph. And it's essentially like the LinkedIn jobs site for the Philippines. I think they have several 100,000 people in the Philippines now that use it. But I can literally, in onlinejobs.ph, you can go on there and you can search for pretty much any skill. So you need a website builder that does WordPress sites. Type in website, WordPress, and you're probably going to have like 500 or more people that pop up that are looking for work and have a full range of experience. And there's a bunch that don't. But what I've learned in having, I think we have about a half dozen people now on the team that are in the Philippines. Their English is really, really good for the most part. I mean, there's some that don't speak great English, but there's some really, really good English where I could put you on a phone call with them and you would not know they were not in Arizona or wherever you wanted to say they were from in the US. And
Mhm.
you've got people that are way more talented at all these skills. But the sad thing is over there, I mean, the Philippines doesn't have a lot of natural resources. And so their resource that they have to make money for the country is people. It's a human resource. And there's a reason there's so many, if you've been on a cruise before, there's a reason there's so many people working on the cruise ships from the Philippines or Indonesia, those areas, because that's how they can make money. There's just and send it back to family. And there's a lot of call centers over there from the US, and they pay them terrible. I mean, we're talking like I don't want to throw Kohl's under the bus, but I know one of our team members was working for Kohl's credit cards, and he was like a manager there for quality assurance type of stuff. And I want to say he was making less than $300 a month, and he would go and he'd be gone Monday through Saturday, and
Mm.
dollars a month. And I mean, just crazy, and that's normal over there. But if you think about, spending that $160, or maybe you can afford $500 a month, you essentially can change somebody's life so significantly, and they could be a full-time employee for you for $500 to $1,000 a month, and they are very talented people, and that's been a game changer for me for scaling some of my stuff I'm doing, because
Mhm.
a lot of them won't have any clue how to do it. I've hired some people where they can speak English and they're smart and they're hard workers, and if I can get that from somebody, and they're very trustworthy people as well. But if I can get somebody who's a hard worker and smart, and give them the ability to not have to leave their family for 6 days a week, and be able to work from home,
Yeah.
pay them twice as much as they might have been making somewhere else. That's amazing, and based on the quality of life they could have, and have them be involved in their family's life. And, down the road, would I love to be able to pay more to those individuals and be even more fair? Sure. But it's one of those where that's something I think any business owner ought to at least consider. Are there some things that I could hire somebody to do? And if it's remote, great. If it's not, and you want to do it local, that's great too. But the internet's done amazing things for remote workers, and allow certain countries to completely get out of the poverty cycle that they've been in for years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's great. I wrestle, and maybe this is a question for you, I guess. I wrestle with, so it makes total sense to hire somebody like that for a coding job or a building a website job or helping to run ads job or setting up email campaigns and things like that. But if it's something that's like requires like a real cultural and branding knowledge of like, for example, if I wanted to hire somebody to run my Instagram for me and I want them to both capture, or my TikTok, and I want them to both capture my personality, my brand, my vibe, but also the zeitgeist of American culture, because that's where I want to grow my fan base, because that's where I'm based, then can you hire somebody from the Philippines to do that effectively?
so can you hire somebody from the United States to do that effectively is what I would ask you. Um, because, catching somebody's personality. I mean, I worked with ad agencies for years when I was in the corporate world, and, we're spending 150, $200 an hour for people, and they were smart people and they were good. But the reality was I still had to train them. I had to train them about our branding at the bank, and, and in the different businesses we had. You still got to teach that person what your zeitgeist and what your personality was. And so essentially, I think you can take anybody in any part of the world, and if you spend enough time with them and work with them, that's possible. For a musician, I think it's tricky. I don't think a musician can just say, "Oh, go do my TikTok or go do my Instagram," and expect that somebody's going to completely nail it. I've tried. I've actually had people here in the U.S. that ran my Facebook. I've actually got my Philippines people and me on multiple Facebook and Instagram channel stuff, and they do a fantastic job. What I think is important, if you are considering doing that, US or out of the US, you need to have some way for them to set up and create the post or whatever the thing is. And then you need to have some oversight on approving it and giving feedback. And over several weeks or months or maybe even years, that feedback they're going to learn, and then they're going to get better at it. And they're going to know, oh, Zach didn't like that thing, or he didn't like pictures that had purple in them. I mean, just little all going to have with our branding or the way we want to do stuff. And with that, they'll get better and better and better. So, I would say I'm probably 50-50 for successfully hiring people to help with social media stuff here in the US. And I honestly, actually, I think I've done better with somebody in the Philippines helping with my social media posts and learning than I've actually been in the US, with getting people to help and figure it out. So they may not have the most, best quirky little things that understand the culture, but if you are reviewing that, you can give them ideas. You can brainstorm ideas. Chat GPT has been amazing for coming up with just, give me 50 potential social media posts that I could do about a piano. There it goes. It's just gonna,
Yeah.
you could look at that and just have that be the beginning, and then you can tweak those and run with them. That probably does a better job than you would do yourself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anyway,
That's good.
I guess, I mean, I think so. I know we're about out, or probably way past time what we planned on, but I think just in this conversation, it's interesting to just kind of. I hope the takeaway that people have had. There's been a lot of value bombs, but there are absolutely ways for people to generate revenue.
Yeah.
What I talked about earlier with you is that, well, for years I've had people say, "Oh, well, you teach us how to do this and do a webinar and do some big class," And frankly, I've not felt comfortable doing that because I feel like every musician and that is different. And so providing a lot of value that's going to actually be applicable to musicians is going to be really tricky to do. And so I haven't actually done a webinar course type of thing. And I probably could have made lots of money and sold lots of people on it. But just recently, I started doing a one-on-one coaching thing with people, and I'm not charging near what I should, but um, I allow people to submit an application if they want to be part of that. And then if they're accepted, I have a 4-day one-on-one coaching, and I literally ask a whole lot of questions from people, and I go through and give ideas that hopefully would be applicable and generate money. And then, with that, my hope is that those musicians that go through that little 4-day coaching thing are 100 times better than they were when they met with me, and again, I'm barely paying for my time for that. But then, for a very, very small group of people that I think is the right fit, we've started putting together a mastermind type of group where um, for the right person. And again, I almost push more people away. I don't even offer it to very many people, but I have this full team that does my websites and I think we have like 24 different websites we're doing. Not all our music ones. We've got the travel companies and things like that, but they are really good at doing basic stuff, and we're really good at doing musician stuff. And so I've basically made my team available to this small group of musicians that want to be in this mastermind group, and they can help, whether it's setting up a funnel, whether it's setting up an ad, I'll jump in and do trainings, and my team does trainings as well. But it's been fun to see people, open up their website and they're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that one little change would generate this much more revenue. I had just last night, I was going through and did a little video for that group. And in the last 7 days, I launched a book, and we'll just use for simple numbers. Let's say that it generated $10,000 in sales for the new book, right? And with one little tweak in addition to the site, my launch of the book added 13% more to the amount that I'd sell every day. So
Hmm.
$1,300 of that $10,000 would be um, people adding on a little bit more, and basically I'm making people thrilled that they got a little bit better deal, a little bonus, adding it's called an order bump. And one little tweak that we can add to the thing generated in $1,300 in additional sales, that 13% bump in 1 week. And
Yeah.
I think the thing that's interesting with that is just by working with the team and helping people see the opportunities. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. I think that's been what's fun is I see people like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And they're literally sitting on extra money and not helping their people for one, and missing out on hopefully making a little bit more money so that they can maybe do the full-time musician thing that so many of us struggled to do when we're starting out. So anyway, so
Yeah.
that sales pitch, but I mean that's kind of where we've been going, and it's been fun to see the successes that people have had. And again, this is not something that I'm offering. Like I almost like I'm even for anybody listening to this, I'm kind of pushing you away. Like, okay, it's probably like you might be the right fit, but you probably aren't yet. You know, help by us.
Yeah. So what is it I have two questions. Is your one-to-one coaching thing genre specific or limited to a certain number of genres? And then two, um, what revenue streams do you feel competent to consult on? Or do you feel competent on all of them? And so, namely, I'm thinking obviously sales is one you're an expert on, streaming, but then what about things like touring and sync and getting record deals and uh you know other sources?
I, I would say that, I mean, the sales, the funnels, the website stuff is definitely where our team excels, and there's huge opportunities that are right under people's noses that they miss all the time. When it comes to touring, I have 4 kids. I don't want to travel around a ton. I do very limited concerts, and if I do, most of the time it's my house here. Um, so I am not, that is not my expertise. I've done I've been involved in a lot of concerts. I've lost my shirt on several concerts that I've tried to, and so I've got some horror stories. I've got a handful of successes for sure as well, but I'm not one that's gonna probably be your guy to do that. I do know several people in the industry who are really good at it, and I would just, if that's the direction somebody would want to go, I'd say, hey, you need to talk to this person. When it comes to the streaming, um, I've done well. I mean, I make well way more than a school teacher makes with my streaming, and but I don't feel like I have that down. I think that's a moving target that's going to
Yeah.
evolve. And so I think if anybody tells you they've got that nailed down, I think they're, blowing smoke. There's absolutely things you can do, but it's where you don't control the streaming platform. I feel like you don't have full, you could have a Thanos snap that just eliminates that revenue source for you tomorrow and wouldn't be able to do a thing about it, which is
We don't know what AI
right.
fully what AI is going to do, especially to Spotify.
When it comes to consulting for sync placements, I have been through two courses that I have been really, really good. I have two really good friends that I can text them, call them on the phone. And, if it's the right thing for the right person, I absolutely could tell you this is, this person would be a good fit for that, and I could call up my friends and say, hey, go run through this guy's course. Some of those people only run their courses like once a year even. But there's that sync isn't right for everybody. I mean, you and I were talking earlier that's getting harder and harder to find those sync jobs. You know, on the flip side, I think it is getting easier and easier to find those sync jobs if you know what you're doing, and because there's never been more TV shows and series and opportunities for placement of music than there's ever been in the history of ever. So it's knowing the right people, being in the right library, or doing the right type of music that's a good fit for those types of shows. So I'm not, if somebody's like, hey, I want sync, I would absolutely want to hear what they've got and send them in to the right person, because that's, I'm not trying to be everything by any means, but I know I've been around long enough that I can usually spot opportunities for people. I've got some friends that are really, really good at doing music videos. We just yesterday planned, we're doing a retreat here in Utah at my recording studio and at the end of October. And he's coming in from DC, and we are going to have kind of a hybrid mastermind retreat we're doing where he's going to actually teach people how to do music videos on their own. So you can do it on the cheap, but we're going to film music videos for everybody that wants to. And he's going to show some methods that we're literally going to film like 20 music videos in like a 10-hour or less period, that are going to be completely different music videos and be over the top, really well done. So
Mhm.
that's going to be one of those exciting things. I think we decided we were going to do like 16 spots for that. I don't even have a place you can go to sign up yet, but that's something that I think for any genre. I'm really good at the piano side. You asked about piano, and I've done a lot of hymns. I mean, you're the church music guy, it sounds like, was your major, but I feel like the things that I can teach are applicable to the heavy metal. I mean, I grew up in junior high. I was playing um, punk music and Green Day, Pennywise on the piano and
Mhm.
stuff. And so I love all genres. There's a handful that I'm not huge fans of. Some of the rap stuff is, I mean, that's just not my jam. But anything that's got a good musical melody to it, um, totally apply. I mean, all of the stuff I can kind of point somebody in the right direction on, it applies to any fan list. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter what kind of genre you're in.
When you say 4 days, do you mean like 4 1 hour calls over the course of 4 random days, or is it like,
So I've kind of got a little agenda that just work through. My goal is to have somebody walk away with something that they can implement and be successful with. And so a lot of what we go through, it's like about 30 to 60-minute calls. And it just depends on the situation and how deep somebody's wanting to go. But by the time somebody leaves, the first day, what I do is I'll dive into asking questions and helping them figure out what they want. Because a lot of people don't even know where they want to go or what they write music, but they don't have any direction. And
yeah.
And the second day, we talk a lot about this onboarding, kind of what's the roadmap. If you had that one fan, what's the journey you'd take them on? And we kind of map that out of what that person's situation would be. And then the third day, we actually will write out, whether it's emails or texts or a personal note, whatever, we'll come up with what's the 2 or 3 things you're going to send out. And I'll give feedback and help with that. And then kind of on that fourth day, it's a Q&A, follow up on stuff we've talked about. And then, in a very few select situations, if somebody's really wanting help or needing help and it's the right fit for both of us, we may say, hey, this might be the right fit for you. But a lot of the stuff, I feel like artists can do a lot of it on their own, and they don't need to spend, there's the time to spend money and get the right people. And then there's other times where, frankly, you can do a lot of it on your own. You don't need to go pay thousands of dollars to have somebody do it for you. And frankly, I've found that when people want to have somebody do everything for them, most of the time they're not successful, because why would they expect somebody else to care about their music or their success as much as they should? And
Yeah.
so,
Well, yeah. And then sometimes the owner or the artist, whatever term you want to give the person in this scenario, needs to like have some blood, sweat, and tears in it in order to have investment in it and ownership in it and to understand the strategy and participate in the strategy. And if they just hired it out, it's like you become two different parties doing two different things, and they're not syncing together.
I mean, I just think I've seen it happen not only with musicians, but just businesses in general. They decide they're going to just pay somebody to go do the thing for them, and they wash their hands of it. And some of that initial stuff is the most important thing you'll ever do as a business owner. It's your business. Why would you not want to have some say in how it's going to be done? It's I could we charge $50,000 or $100,000 to have somebody come and go in and set a bunch of stuff up and do it for them? Sure, but for me, I'd rather see that growth in the artist and be there to hold their hand and do it with them if they need the help. But I really hesitate to tell people, the done for you. I haven't seen that be successful very often in music
Yeah.
or any business thing where it's just, you wash your hand of the thing. You've got to be involved at some level as a small business.
Yeah. So what do you charge?
You know what? So right now for the 4 days, if you're accepted, it's $497 is what we've been doing for that 4 days one-on-one coaching with Jason. I don't do more than one person a week. And a lot of times I'll skip weeks just because I got so many other things going on. But it's my way to kind of give back to the community. And then for those that need the help, it depends on what the need is. It's ranged anywhere from $1,000 to kind of $3,000 a month. Again, but I am insistent that we are not a do it for you on
Yeah.
it. You can get in and do some of the hard technical stuff, absolutely, but I don't even want to work with an artist that just doesn't want to be involved and do some of the work. I just know they won't be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it makes total sense.
So anyway, well, I think we're way out of time, and but hopefully people got some value out of this, and hopefully it just makes people think of a little bit different way to think through your music and how you can earn money. And this has been fun, Zach. So appreciate you sharing a lot of your value, your story, your value of how you've made money. I think that type of stuff is going to help a lot of people. So thank you.
Oh, great. I hope it is helpful.
Awesome. Hey, it's Jason here, and I hope you've gotten a lot of value out of this episode. Be sure to check out our show notes to learn more about our guest today, and if you'd like to support our podcast, there's a few things that you can do to help us grow. First, if you hit subscribe, it will help ensure that you don't miss a future episode. Second, if you'll share it with your friends on social media or send it via email or message, it helps us spread the word as well. And third, if you'll leave an honest review, it really helps with the algorithms so that other people can find our podcast. Finding success and fulfillment in the music industry is possible, and I look forward to seeing you on our next episode.